Hello, hope you're doing all right. Hope you're keeping safe. Hope you're keeping sane. Hope you're looking forward to the end of lockdown and long-awaited freedom. Today, I want to talk about what is possibly the most requested subject I get in my comments and people asking me questions about, and that is about casino streamers, people who put videos out on YouTube, people who live stream on Twitch, and about casino affiliates and those who create gambling-related content on the internet, normally with some ulterior motive in order to commercialise and to monetize it. But what I don't want to do is what's happened in the past when I've talked about this, is to create a massive them and us division. So in this video, I'm not particularly going to be calling anyone specific out. I'm not going to be slating casino streamers. I'm not going to be trying to expose anyone. What I want to do, firstly, is concentrate on the connection and the affiliation, if you will, between watching gambling content online and gambling recovery to those who have a gambling problem. I will touch upon the wider subject of streamers and the current state of the industry in that respect later on in the video. But first, what I want to do is talk about how I, as a recovering gambling addict, believe that this sort of deluge, as it was, of casino content and of streamer content online can have an impact on those with a gambling addiction, and most importantly, because this is the question I get asked most frequently, if I'm attempting a gambling recovery, if I'm trying to give up gambling, particularly if I'm trying to give up online casinos, should I still be watching these videos? Should I still be watching these content creators and these affiliates and these streamers? Now, I will say what I always say, which is everything I give you, every bit of advice, every bit of information that I talk to you about is based purely on my experience. It's not professional advice. It's not professional opinion. It's just what I have experienced in my recovery and in my gambling life. So on that basis, let's talk firstly about what I did. Now, I used to watch casino streamers very, very regularly. I used to watch mostly the British ones. I didn't really get on so much with the foreign ones. But I used to watch Craig, I used to watch Jimbo, I used to watch Rock and Roller, I used to watch The Bandit. Pretty much they were the main ones that I used to watch while I was gambling online. And certainly whilst I was gambling, there did seem to be a connection between watching these videos or watching these streams and me having a go myself. But at the time it wasn't an issue because I was gambling online, I was gambling regularly anyway, I had a gambling problem, so if I didn't lose the money online, if I didn't lose the money as a result of watching these videos, then I would have gone and lost it somewhere else in another form of gambling anyway. When I started trying to quit gambling, I continued to watch these videos, and yes, I will admit that what happened was I watched these videos and it planted a seed in my mind. Whether or not I was directly influenced by them, I think one of the common arguments is that these content creators put out big wins. They put out, they're only the positive side of gambling, which is true for some of them, not for most, but for some of them, yes, they do only put out the positive side of gambling, purely with a view to driving you to try it yourself, to try and replicate those big wins, to replicate those great results they have in these videos, and then you click through to their link, sign up, and they make money off the back of your losses. So I wasn't necessarily motivated by the big wins, but I was motivated to try the games. Particularly if I saw a streamer playing the game that I particularly enjoyed, I'd think, yeah, go on and I'll have another quick go. So common sense would dictate, and I still believe that common sense dictates, that when I chose to quit gambling, and by chose to quit gambling, I mean actively get into recovery and do something about it, rather than just tell myself I'm not doing this anymore and then 2 days later falling back into the same old routine. So when I actually decided I was going to do something about gambling, when I started putting blocks in place, when I started to talk to people, when I started to open up, get someone to manage my money, do all those things that I bleat on and on and on about, common sense would have said, well, obviously you're going to stop watching the streamers then, aren't you? And again, in all honesty, all I can do is talk about me, is I didn't. I continued to watch the streamers. I continued to watch the content creators on YouTube. And I would be lying if I said that there wasn't a part of watching these videos that ignited a small urge in my brain. I didn't act on it. And partially that was because I couldn't act on it because of the actions I'd already taken. And that goes to show kind of the importance of taking action up front when trying to abstain. But I did continue to watch these videos. So my advice from experience is that you can recover, while still watching these videos. If you're not, then my advice would be not to start. If you're currently in the midst of an active recovery, if you're days, weeks, months, years possibly even, into an active recovery, you're getting some form of gambling urge, my advice would be don't turn to these videos as a way to scratch the itch. This was my justification in a sense to myself, certainly in the early days and in some of the failed recoveries, was that I was watching these videos to scratch the itch. I was watching someone else gamble because I couldn't gamble myself. I've spoken a number of times on this channel about how actually this channel itself had, I believe, a part to play in a lapse I had, in a relapse I have that's well documented. Go back through the videos and you'll find some more information on it. But I blame, to an extent, my proactivity in creating videos for my lapse, for my relapse. Of course, it's only me to blame. But that's because it was keeping gambling active in my mind. It was keeping gambling, there. It was right there. It was never far away. And when gambling is there at the forefront of your mind, there's only a thin barrier, or whatever barrier you put in place, between that thought, between that spark, between that urge, and between action. And I genuinely believe that hanging on to gambling as a big part of my life, be it through these videos, be it through watching streamers, be it through whatever, I was not allowing my headspace to sort of push that gambling away. It was always there. It was always up front. And I think that watching videos can have that effect. And I will stress again at this point that everyone's recovery is different. Anecdotally, I've heard of people who do actively use watching these videos as a part of their recovery. So it can be done, and everyone's recovery is different. But from my experience, I found that did keep gambling much more alive in my head. Now, for one reason or another, as I've gone through my recovery, and now I'm what I would suggest is a fair way into it, I've found that the desire to watch these videos, the desire to watch this content has eased. I no longer really feel the drive to watch these videos. Occasionally I will click on one when it pops up on YouTube, and I will watch it for 5-10 minutes and I'll get bored and I'll switch it off, because I believe that because gambling is no longer so prevalent in my life, and because I don't experience the highs and lows emotionally of gambling, that you're effectively then just watching numbers on a screen, you're watching pictures on a screen, without that emotional connection to wins or losses. In the early days, I could connect on a more human basis, on a more empathetic basis with the person playing the games, because I knew the feelings myself and they were very fresh in my mind. If I just had a big loss gambling, or if gambling losses were still frequent, still sort of reasonably current in my mind, I could feel that empathy with the person losing on the other end of the screen. If I could always remember wins. We all remember wins, don't we? And you see someone else have the wins, yes, again, you can feel it with them. Now, as time has gone on, and I've distanced myself from gambling, and I no longer have those highs, lows, endorphins, dopamine, all the rest of it that we talk about from gambling, it's just watching pictures and numbers on a screen. It doesn't drive anything in me, it doesn't create any urges, and it doesn't even create the desire to continue watching the video. I would say that has also not helped in this respect by the fact that the streamers themselves, and I'm going to talk a bit more in depth now about, I believe, the state of streaming and the state of video creation, that the streamers themselves have openly admitted that they no longer enjoy doing what they do. In the early days of me watching content online, I watched the Bandit. I thought he was very relatable. He was actually quite humorous. He seemed to actually enjoy playing the games. You could share the ups and downs with him. I believe that feeling, that empathy, sort of faded a little bit when you realise that the sheer size of the operation he was involved in and the money he was making. When he went from doing significantly huge deposits to then trying to do videos with relatively relatively low deposits, what for me or for most people would be huge, but depositing £1,000 and playing at low stakes, you lose that empathy because you realise that the ups and downs that they express on the video are not really in line with your own. But most recently, even the Bandit, Craig, have both been very, very vocal about how they no longer enjoy making videos. So this isn't casting shade, this isn't calling anyone out, this isn't trying to create drama. I'm merely, repeating, in essence, what these guys have said themselves in their own videos, and that's that they don't enjoy making the videos anymore. Bandit has been very open about the fact that his new channel was purely to make ad revenue. It was purely a business move to generate views, to generate engagement, to make money off his channel. And I appreciate that openness, that honesty, and actually by doing that you're not making the money off of affiliation, off of people losses. You're making money off of Google AdSense, which is fine, and I appreciate the openness. But when you realise that someone's doing this purely for a business and purely because that's their livelihood, you no longer share that affinity with them. You no longer share their highs and lows because their highs and lows are totally academic to the feel of the video. So I think whilst there's a lot to be talked about when it comes to watching these videos in recovery, I don't know how much longer these videos are going to be about. YouTube stopped pushing them, you can't put them on Twitch. The streamers themselves, like I say, are losing interest. And I would certainly, being a cynical old bugger that I am, would suggest that maybe the revenue streams from these videos are drying up. Ultimately, if YouTube aren't promoting them, if a lot of your base audience have already used your links, already used your affiliated casinos, and you've already had the kickback from them, and some of them have now moved on, or some of them are in recovery, or some of them are just going off and playing elsewhere, then your revenue's starting to dry up, and the motivation to make these videos is disappearing. So I don't think these videos are really even going to be around for that much longer. But ultimately, my advice, and I have rambled a lot here, but my advice would be, if you're in recovery and you're watching these videos and it's working, continue to do what works for you. But you will very likely find that your interest in watching affiliates and streamers will fade as you distance yourself further and further in other respects from gambling. If you're starting gambling and you're struggling and you're looking to scratch an itch, you're looking to get a hit of gambling without gambling yourself, my personal advice from experience would be don't turn to streamers, don't turn to this online content as a way to scratch an itch, because it's only likely to perpetuate any urge you already have. If you're currently watching these videos and you're looking to start your recovery, if you're watching these videos and you're actually thinking your own gambling is becoming a bit of a problem, it's becoming a bit out of control, then again, my advice purely from experience would be to cut out as many sources and streams and avenues of gambling in your life as possible when you start your recovery. Of course, the most important thing remains the active blocks. It remains the exclusions, it remains, handing your finances over to someone, it remains talking. All these things that I preach on and on and on about, they are the most important things, but also distancing yourself from gambling. Now, there'll be ways in which we can't do that, and we certainly don't want to do that. Some of our friends may gamble, and I'm not talking about gambling friends, I'm talking about actual friends who gamble. Okay, just very quickly, gambling friends are people you speak to purely because you both gamble, maybe once you see in the bookies, whatever. Friends who gamble are a completely different kettle of fish. They are actual friends who you want to remain friends with, who have other, with whom you have other similarities, other shared interests, or you've had an established friendship, but they also gamble. You don't want to necessarily cut those out of your life, but cut out everything else gambling related that you can, and that does include watching these videos, watching these streamers. Unless you're actively already using it as part of a successful recovery, don't add any extra temptation, don't add an opportunity to ignite an urge by seeing these people who may come across a game that you really enjoy, or they start playing a game on stream that you once had a really big win on, and it triggers something in your brain to go away and try and replicate that. Of course, as always, what I'll say is that if you've got the right blocks in place, you've got GamStop in place, self-exclusions, blocks on your bank account so you can't make gambling transactions, and so many banks do that now, then you can't act on these urges anyway. But there's still no point in trying to generate urges for yourself, because actually the more and more you restrict yourself in terms of gambling, the more likely you are to go somewhere unreputable, unlicensed, and somewhere where you're not just gambling, you are throwing your money away, because even if you win, you ain't going to get it back. And don't even get me started on fake streamers and foreign streamers, because I can't be bothered. Have a good day, everyone. Stay safe, stay sane, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.